So we don't yet know exactly what David Cameron hopes to achieve from his renegotiation of the UK's EU membership ahead of a referendum in 2017, or maybe sooner. And if he's looking for advice, today's papers are peppered with helpful comments about what he should be asking for. Earlier this morning, the former president of the European Commission, Jose Manuel Barroso, gave his view on what Mr. Cameron might achieve. Here he is speaking to Andrew Marr.
The ever closer union reference, it's a kind of a political statement, really, very general, is in the treaty. So to put it out will require a change in the treaty. It will require unanimity. This treaty, as you know, was approved, ratified by all the countries, including Britain. So if now Britain wants to change it, it's going to be more complex.
Isabel, isn't, from what we know so far, the surprising thing about the Cameron position is how modest it is, how ambitious he is.
Yes, it's almost as if he's hoping to get everything he asks for because he's asking very little. But one of the strange things, I think, is that he recommitted the Conservatives to their net migration target to drive immigration down into the tens of thousands. Nothing he's spelt out so far suggests that his EU renegotiation will enable him to do that. The reforms on benefits will not drive net migration down into the tens of thousands. So either he's got some big immigration reform at the heart of the EU plan, or he was recommitting to a target for no good reason.
But we know that's the one thing he's not going to get. He may get some changing on particularly the in-work benefits, though that'll be quite hard to do. But the whole idea that he can do anything about the free movement of peoples, that's gone.
Well, the Prime Minister toyed with that idea, and it was pretty close to getting into the speech he made on immigration at the end of November. And then Angela Merkel said to him, if you toy with freedom of movement, you will not have my support. And obviously the absolutely central calculation the Prime Minister has made is he's got to have Angela Merkel's support. And what that means is that what he's seeking to achieve is relatively modest, and that means that you will get this big historic split in the Conservative Party. Now, people like Liam Fox are saying, I'll wait to see what the Prime Minister gets. But we know that what he's going to get is not going to be enough for Liam Fox. It's not going to be enough for Graham Brady. And interestingly, it's not going to be enough for Ian Duncan Smith. And I would imagine that Ian Duncan Smith, who wants to take us back to more of a sort of a common market relationship, I would have thought he would absolutely demand the right to campaign for a no vote. And if that means leaving the cabinet, that means leaving the cabinet.
You wonder, looking at what he's trying to achieve, why would you bother with a referendum for this?
Yeah, I worry both about the content of the renegotiation and also the timing. There's already an internal debate within the party about whether you go early, thereby exploiting the fact that Cameron has political capital right now that he won't have midterm when he's an unpopular Prime Minister, or whether you give it 2 years precisely so you can get the most out of Brussels or Berlin that you possibly can. On balance, I would actually wait until the middle of the Parliament. As long as Angela Merkel is German Chancellor, the German Chancellor most likely to be cooperative with David Cameron that we can imagine, I think he's likely to get most of the modest offering that he's come up with. And going early would mean you hold a referendum largely on the terms that exist, which increases the chances of the British people voting out.
But the Prime Minister is trying to make out that this is going to be a government for working people, a government with the concerns of what most of the country is concerned about. That if his first 2 years are dominated by renegotiating our terms of entry, having to deal with Scotland and devolution and English votes for English laws, and doing something about the Human Rights Act, it'll be dominated by constitutional issues, which I would suggest most people don't have at the top of their agenda.
Well, I think he has clocked that. My colleague James Forsyth reveals in his column today that he's going to try and talk about one domestic issue ahead of every European summit, so he doesn't appear to be banging on about Europe, as he once warned his own party not to do.
Here's a European summit, here's a domestic policy.
Yes.
That's the idea.
Yes, very clever.
Do you think he's got enough domestic policies?
Well, it depends whether his party will allow him to pass any of them as well.
All right, we'll leave it there.